When you came in, the air went out, and every shadow filled up with doubt. I don't know who you think you are, but before the night is through, I wanna do put things with you. Sing it with me now. I wanna do put things with you. Hello, hi, welcome. The show's name is Politics. Although I call it Politrix, and the title of this episode is Poor Things. My name is Presh, and that song is called Bad Things. But I changed the word bad to poor, you know. You see, because the title of the... Never mind. Bad Things was the theme song to True Blood. Very, very dope show and very dope song. It was my favorite opening credits until I watched Game of Thrones, with the Game of Thrones opening sequence would change every week depending on which storylines we were following. So if, like in that episode, we would see like Jon's storyline, you would see the wall in the opening sequence. If we were in Essos or, whatever scenes were taking place in that episode would be shown in the intro, which was very dope. My current favorite is obviously Succession because that's the dopest fucking song on earth, and yeah, that's my opening credits takes. But yeah, also my co-host is not available this week. We actually recorded a commentary to put out, and first of all, I don't like putting out main feed commentaries because they don't do very well. But also, yeah, just commentary overload. We just did the Rebel Moon and Home Alone commentaries, so, I don't want to force too much of that. Because, the commentaries are, way longer than a podcast. So, yeah, let's just get into it, right? So I don't really have any cleanup from last week. Not because we didn't get anything wrong, because I just didn't have time to do it. I didn't have time to go listen back to that episode and write down any little factual errors that I could find. So let's get into the news, right? The US presidential primary started this week with Iowa, and Donald Trump won the most delegates, which is a surprise to nobody. Right? It would take like an illness or some serious injury or an unforeseen act of God for him to not be the nominee. It's like the best team in the world playing against a lower division team. Like a Liverpool Football Club versus like a Man United. The big team is going to win, but, we still need to play the game. And yeah, I'm a bit shocked, though, that Ron DeSanctimonious came in second. He got 21.2% of the vote share. I would have thought that he'd come in like fourth or fifth. Because America has this deranged system of primaries where they go state by state, starting with Iowa, then New Hampshire, and then South Carolina. As opposed to, most countries where they just have a vote on the same day. I have no idea why they go state to state, but it gives a disproportionate amount of power to these states, because if your politician doesn't get any momentum from the early states, they usually just drop out. So if you live in I don't know, New York or something, by the time it's time for New York to vote, your candidate may have dropped out. So, it's anti-democratic, if anything. But, yeah, I assume Ron put a lot of money into the early states because, like I said, you have to get momentum in the early states. That's what Pete Buttigieg did in 2020, and he parlayed that into being the transport secretary. So, apparently it works. Then after Meatball Ron, we have Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy. We've spoken about Vivek on the show, but Nikki Haley is in the same boat. She knows that she won't win. Both of them are campaigning to become a member of the next Trump administration. The difference is that she's being talked about as a potential vice president, while right-wingers are mocking Vivek. Right? If you recall, when I spoke about Vivek, I said, okay, you're trying to appeal to these racists, but they will never respect you. And there's just been a lot of jokes about him from the right that is like, all right, you'll get a job in the Trump administration, ... working at the subway, and for whatever reason in this scenario, there's the corporation Subway has a store inside the White House, but and apparently the president, appoints whoever's the manager of that store. But anyway, Nikki Haley is also an Indian person, which, once again, I've mentioned this many times on the show. Rishi Sunak, Vivek Ramaswamy, Suella Braverman, Indians on the political stage are deeply, deeply embarrassing, especially in the West. In South Africa, I don't really know of any high-profile Indian politicians, but Indians on Twitter almost every day just embarrass us. But anyway, Nikki Haley is like white passing. She actually changed her name to Nikki Haley. She had a very Indian name before that. She's a Sikh, which if you don't know that, maybe you know Harbhajan Singh. He was a spin bowler for India, and he wore it's not a turban, but it's like a smaller turban, where there's a small little ball at the end. I don't know how to describe it, but she's white passing. Ideologically, she seems to have a lot of similar opinions to Trump. She's just presenting herself as the quote-unquote smart version of him. Incredibly similar situation to Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders in 2020. Sanders was considering Elizabeth Warren as a potential vice president until she just fucking knifed him in the back, to try become president. So, yeah, fuck her. But yeah. And fuck Bernie Sanders, bro. I don't know how long it's been, but he still hasn't called for a ceasefire. So, yeah, fuck him. Piece of shit. The next story, I'm taking this from an excerpt from IndianExpress.com in a story by Shivani Naik. Quote, start of article. David Teeger is a South African batsman of Jewish origin who was removed as captain of the Under-19 World Cup team after an uproar against his statements in support of the Israeli army in the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Cricket South Africa had named him captain in September and retained him after an independent adjudicator appointed by them had defended Teeger's right to freedom of speech post his offensive speech. Subsequent protests, however, made them make a U-turn as they stripped him of the captaincy, though retaining him in the team. On October 22, in his acceptance speech at the ABSA Jewish Achievers Awards, the then 18-year-old Teeger spoke admiringly of the Israeli army. Quote, I am now the rising star, but the true rising stars are the young soldiers in Israel, and I'd like to dedicate the award to the state of Israel and to every single soldier fighting, so that we can live and thrive in the diaspora, Teeger said. It was said in the immediate aftermath of over 4,000 Palestinians killed by the Israeli army in retribution for Hamas terrorists who attacked on October 7, killing 1,300 Israelis and taking over 200 hostages. Since then, the number of deaths has gone up in the ongoing conflict with Israel reportedly. Let me retake that. Since then, the number of deaths has gone up in the ongoing conflict with Israel, killing 23,350 civilians in Gaza. During a pro-Palestinian protest outside Newland Stadium where India were playing South Africa in a test on January 3rd, according to CricBuzz's Telford Vice, the slogans included, quote, Teeger, how many doctors did your friends kill today? ? The Palestinian Solidarity Alliance, PSA, lodged a complaint with South Africa's Olympic Committee calling Teeger's views, quote, provocative and an inflammatory political statement. On January 12th, the day after he turned 19, in a press release, the CSA announced that Teeger was, quote, relieved of the captaincy for the tournament, end quote. In the, quote, best interests of all the players, the team and David himself. It also added, we have been advised that protests related to the war in Gaza can be anticipated at the venues for the tournament. There were concerns that the executive scrutiny on Tiga's Israel stand with the unavoidable and incessant media questions could be another headache for the youngster, as well as open him up to further criticisms and attack with his strident views were he to be captain. He could also distract the team from the World Cup campaign. So, my personal opinion is that this is a free speech violation. I don't really follow cricket, but I'm assuming that the board that runs Cricket South Africa is in some way related to the government, and stripping him of the captaincy in retaliation for his speech is, essentially the government attacking somebody for saying something that they didn't like, right? So I understand why Cricket South Africa says, it might be distracting, but I just think they should let him face the consequences of his actions. And I don't mean consequences like he should be beat up or, any other kind of violence. I mean like people protesting outside the stadium with the Tiga, how many doctors did your friends kill today sign. He's allowed to have free speech, and in the same way people have the free speech to protest him, right? Also, I probably didn't need to clarify that I meant non-violently. Pro-Palestinian protesters are not known for retaliatory violence. It's actually the country of Israel that does that. And very short news segment this week. I've actually been on holiday, so I have not been keeping up with the news. I've just been at the end of the day, I'll occasionally go on Twitter and see some stuff, but I'm not reading the newspaper like I usually would. So the next segment I want to introduce this as a regular segment, right, where we try to spotlight a leftist project, for example, like a worker-based co-op, any leftist newspaper, pamphlet, or just any kind of literature in general, and this is the main one that I'm trying to get, is opportunities to do praxis. So what is praxis? Praxis means politics in practice, which means you can claim to be a socialist, but what are you doing to advance socialism, right? For example, I tutor kids every week, right? I volunteer my time and expertise to help, grow young minds. Well, poor kids, that's the area that I go to. It's a very poor area. So what are you doing for praxis? And I would like to point out opportunities to do that praxis. Maybe you're not good at tutoring, but you can definitely volunteer at a soup kitchen where you help feed the homeless, or there's many opportunities like that. And if you would like to be spotlighted, please send an email to paicippod@gmail.com. That's PAICIP pod@gmail.com, with the name of your organization, what you do, and what people can do to get involved and support this project. Alright, this is going to be a very, very, very short episode because, I'm looking at it and we're only in 13 minutes in. We're already getting to the context for the movie, so probably expecting this to be half an hour, a little bit more. But, it's fine. I'm alone this week, so it's obviously hard to stretch the time being alone, So, yes, let's get into the context of the movie. The movie is directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, who is a Greek filmmaker known for making unorthodox, bizarre, and challenging films to watch. 2 years ago, I watched The Lobster and instantly became a fan. So then I watched Killing of a Sacred Deer, Dogtooth, and Alps. The only movie I haven't seen is The Favorite, which is apparently his best movie. So that's actually a huge blind spot for me. I've seen a lot of people I respect have it on their best of decade list, so it's kind of embarrassing that I've never checked it out. So probably by next week's episode I would have watched it, and I'll have it in my recommendation section. But yes, the movie was based on a book of the same name by Alasdair Gray, which I've never read, so I can't really speak to it or say how it was changed, or, yeah. So, the next thing is, based on what I heard about this movie, I thought this would be a retelling of Pinocchio. But now that I've seen it, it's clearly a retelling of Frankenstein. But instead of a monster, it's a woman who likes sex? Question mark? What the hell? We're not meant to enjoy sex. But because of this, I'm sure certain religious people view her as the bigger monster than Frankenstein. But yes, this was like a thing. Well, I used to go to a creative writing class when I was in high school. Like, it was one of the English teachers, and she would give us assignments like write this and do this. And one of the things she said was, take a book, any book, and write it in your style. Maybe turn the book into like a rhyming book. Rewrite every sentence as a rhyme, or just take a book, write it in your style. And I feel very much like this movie was, let's take Frankenstein and write it in our style, either the author of the book or whoever wrote this movie. Again, I have no idea. Because, like The Shining, the movie is far different to the book. So similarly here, I have no idea if this is far different to the book or not, right? And before you say, well, Presh, you should have read the book. Well, listen, fuck you. I'm not a nerd. I don't read books. In fact, I can't read. I just, I kind of guess what's written on the page. And I'm usually right. So take that, fucking nerds. Anyway, can get into my thoughts for the movie. So, I think this movie is about questioning the assumptions that we make about everyday life. The device used to convey this idea is a newborn person with no context for the world asking why things work the way that they do, right? Because, like, like if you're grown up, you're just kind of made peace with the fact that this is just how life is. But if you're a newborn, you're like, what the fuck is this? Why is this happening? And I think that's a very interesting way to convey that idea. So yeah, some of these things I agree with. For example, she questions the brothel's methods of choosing who has sex with whom as a metaphor for real life dating, right? Obviously, it's mainly the guy who makes the first move in a relationship, and the movie is asking, why aren't women as forward as, men, and encourages them to try and make the first move themselves. But there's other things I disagree with, such as when she cheats on Mark Ruffalo and asks why having sex with somebody else changes the relationship. I'd assume that this is obvious, but it's hurtful, it's disrespectful, it's humiliating to be cheated on. You feel bad. You don't feel glad. In fact, you feel quite sad. So, that's why. I also think that this movie is Beau's Afraid, but for women, right? In that Beau's Afraid showed like what can go wrong in a man's life. And, well, if you haven't seen the movie, this probably doesn't make sense, but there's a play in the middle of the movie, and the play shows how the man should live life. Similarly, in this movie, I believe the first part of the movie where she's living hedonistically, that's how people should live. And then the, final 15, 20 minutes where she goes back to her original husband. I forget his name. And I don't know the actor's name. I usually just say like, oh, Emma Stone did this or whatever. I don't know that guy's name, so I can't say, right? But yes, so her time with the original husband is what can go wrong in a relationship, and the beginning is what can go right in your life, right? Is also appropriate because I went to watch this at the Rosebank Nouveau, which is where I watched Beau's Afraid. It's also incredibly surreal, which it shares also with Beau's Afraid. The other movie I want to compare this to is something I saw Dan Murrow bring up as well in his review, but I just want to clarify that I had this thought independent of him. Barbie is also a naive woman who goes into the real world and finds out that it's dominated by the patriarchy, and she rejects these societal norms, right? Which quite clearly what Emma Stone does in this movie, right? And Mark Ruffalo is Ken, who's immature and, gets upset with a woman's newfound freedom. So, very clear parallel. Well, I'm not saying one of them ripped off the other. I'm just saying very similar story coming out within a few months of each other, and I truly believe Poor Things is a far better movie, right? Well, when we get into my rating, I'll justify, why I gave the rating I did, right? I also thought it was funny that the original husband got turned into a goat at the end, which is somewhat the plot of The Lobster, which I don't want to spoil, but the plot of that movie is lonely people, if you can't find a mate, you get turned into an animal. And the main guy he wants to become a lobster. So that's similarly what happened here. That guy, he didn't become a goat, he just has the mind of a goat, and it made me think of The Lobster. So, yeah, they're very funny. Also thought, I've seen some discourse online that it's a pedophilic situation because she's mentally a child, and I disagree. This is a sci-fi movie, right? This is not representing the real world at all. This is, we're told that her brain is rapidly developing into an adult. We're not given a timeline, but she only begins thinking about sex 30 to 40 minutes into the movie. It's, I think we're meant to believe that by the time we meet her, she's a teen, and by the time she runs away with Mark Ruffalo, she's in her 20s. That's my thinking about it. I honestly have no idea, but yeah. There's also a religious indoctrination angle on this, right? William Dafoe's character is named Godwin, and Emma Stone calls him God. Speaking about choice in this movie, she never chooses to be religious, but she has this relationship that resembles religion with her creator, Godwin in this case. Whereas, the average religious person, it's with God. So, no, it's not very. This is baby's first symbolism. You shouldn't. You shouldn't need me to say this. Yeah. The next thing is when she sees the people living in poverty, she has this extremely negative reaction, as even with a child's brain she can recognize what a disgrace it is, right? Just a small aside, there's a road in Joburg where I live, right? And on one side of the road you can see this poverty-stricken township called Alexandria, which by coincidence is the same name as the place Emma Stone sees the poor people. Or unless Yorgos Lanthimos came to South Africa and he also saw this road where on the one side is Alexandria, and on the other side of the road is a city called Sandton. It's an extremely opulent and bourgeois area, right? My uncle once referred to it as the quote-unquote New York of Africa, which, okay. Where am I? I remember being a child and looking from side to side and wondering, why is one area so built up while the other area was effectively a slum? The road is this monument to inequality, which, yes, South Africa, the number one most unequal country on earth, which, we're number one, we're number one, we're number one. Yeah, I think the movie is saying that this idea of fairness is a natural thing and inherent even in children. It's that's how things should be, without the indoctrination of society coming into it, right? Bella, or Emma Stone, is so naive that she thinks that simply handing over money is going to solve the problem. This is what real life people think. They donate to a charity and think that it's enough, while certain charities are money laundering schemes and don't do actual good with those donations. I'm not saying don't donate to charity. I'm just saying first of all, be careful which charities you donate to, and second of all, like I mentioned with the praxis, it's voting and donating money is not enough. You need to organize. You need to donate time. You need to make an effort to build up socialism if you want that to happen, right? It's not just going to happen. Speaking of which, later on in the movie, she learns about the virtues of socialism from her I want to say co-worker, but the other prostitute at the brothel. And that is an actual way to affect change. So, Yorgos Lanthimos telling us he's the new Lenin. His movies are going to inspire a new Soviet Union, but a worldwide one. And fair enough. The next thing is, this movie is gorgeously shot, but it's also extremely interestingly shot, right? There are plenty of gorgeous movies that are shot in an orthodox way, but the cuts to the wide-eye lenses, they just give you the sense of unease, like she's being watched, like very much like a Hitchcock movie. It turns the viewer into a voyeur, and obviously most notably when Emma Stone is having sex, it's that scene with her and Mark Ruffalo, hello, they it's very much like the scene from A Clockwork Orange, where it's just like fucking, right? Next thing is the score, especially the violins, is incredible, right? It adds this haunting tone to the film. This is theoretically a comedy, but the music indicates that it's a tragedy. That being said, the movie is hilarious, right? I'm definitely not saying, oh, it's not a comedy or something of that nature. Just similarly to Oppenheimer, there's so many times where I burst out into laughter while the rest of the theater was quiet. So maybe it was just me that found this movie hilarious, but nevertheless, that's my opinion. Oh, so I'm not allowed to laugh when I think something's funny. Well, cancelled once again for my leftist viewpoint. Anyway, the production design, also phenomenal, right? The costume, set design, CGI, all extremely unique and give this dreamlike world, right? This is ostensibly set in the Victorian era, but with far more advanced technology than even today, and I thought the production design did a great job of imagining what that world would look like. Even the skyline with the weird CGI kind of felt appropriate for this world. Like the skyline and the sea, it's all very well done. Then the next thing, which is the big buzz that I heard about this movie, is the acting, right? And the two names that were thrown about was Emma Stone and Mark Ruffalo, right? And I've been hearing that they're the favorites for the Oscars in their respective categories, and I think that is half true, right? Emma Stone is the phenomenal standout. She's actually my co-favorite for Best Actress at the Oscars, alongside Carey Mulligan right now. Ruffalo's accent is far too distracting to me, especially since it drops in and drops out from time to time. I still like the physicality and timing of his jokes and, his performance in general, but that accent is just too much, bro. I guess it's supposed to be English, but I don't know, it didn't work for me. Sorry. And I'm seeing a lot of people praising him, but I just didn't get that. Like I said, it's still a very good performance, but it's not like a game changer, What Emma Stone is doing in this movie is like next level, right? And this guy is he's good, but it's not, I feel like I'm saying the exact same thing. So the performance that really took me by surprise was Willem Dafoe. I don't know if it's Oscar worthy, but I was really taken every time he was on the screen, which not a lot of time, maybe it's like 2 hours long, and he was in it for maybe like half an hour, 40 minutes. So yes, whatever time we did have with him, I was quite happy, quite happy. Not sad, glad. I was glad. Alright, so in conclusion, I gave the movie a 9 because of how technically well made it is, but there's still something missing. I just can't quite articulate it. I could, like as I'm going through my thoughts of the movie, it's just, again, technically perfectly made. But there's just something I don't like about it that's just rubbing me the wrong way. So perhaps on rewatch, like when I watch it at home one day, or I might bump it up to a 10. But for right now, it's a 9. So yeah, that's my Poor Things review / analysis, and I I want to introduce another segment, but this is not a recurring segment. This is a once-off segment, which is the Better Call Saul segment. Why am I doing this? So the Emmys happened this week, and instead of having an Emmy segment, I thought we should do a Better Call Saul segment, because Better Call Saul was nominated for 53 Emmys and never won a single one, which is an absolute crime, and I think reflects far more poorly on the Emmy voters than it does on Better Call Saul. So I thought it'd be nice to go back and relitigate the ones that I think should have won in the outstanding drama category, because like I'm not gonna go back and think about like the set design for Better Call Saul season 1 versus whatever, right? I'm just thinking about overall kind of thoughts, ideas. So it was nominated for Outstanding Drama every year in its 7-season run, and its first season lost to Game of Thrones season 5, which is the first award it should have won, right? Seasons 1 through 3 of Game of Thrones are perfect television. Season 4 is great, but you can see the bad tendencies creeping in, like they start to lean on catchphrases, and it becomes a lot of style over substance, right? Like the first 3 seasons are about political intrigue and about the characters and top tier acting, and then like I said, from season 4 onwards it becomes these gimmicks about like, oh, I drink a lot and I know things. I know that didn't come on in season 4. I'm saying season 4 set the stage for things like that, right? Season 5 is just as good, but it's clearly in decline. Season 6 is the worst, and then 7 and 8 are the same level as 5. Season 8 obviously gets the most hate, because that's when the chickens came home to roost, right? But I believe that the rot set in much earlier. Also, if I'm looking at the rest of the TV shows that year, season 7 of Mad Men was out, and I'm gonna be honest, the latter seasons of Mad Men didn't know what to do. Like, they were just, I think by season 4 it was over, but the later seasons is just them meandering and like really not knowing what to do. So yeah, definitely it should have won in, I think, 2015. I don't know when that ceremony was held. So season 2 lost to Game of Thrones season 6, which as I mentioned was not good. But unfortunately, Better Call Saul would not have won, as Mr. Robot season 1 came out that year. But it would honestly be like a dead heat between the two. You can't ask me to choose between. But I guess I did choose by saying Mr. Robot, but I'm saying it's very difficult to choose. That's what I'm getting at. For its 3rd season, it lost to The Handmaid's Tale, which I can't comment on. Actually, I don't know why I said that. I'm definitely going to comment, right? If I had to hazard a guess, this was... Wait, sorry. Let me reel it back. I can't comment because I've never seen The Handmaid's Tale, right? But I can hazard a guess as to why it won, and that guess is that it was in reaction to Trump, right? This ceremony took place in the first year of his presidency, and The Handmaid's Tale is about feminism, right? So I'm assuming the Emmy voters thought that they were sticking it to Trump, by a feminism show winning the best Emmy, right? Which, as we all remember, it worked. The next day after the Emmys, he resigned in shame and, he gave up the presidency to Hillary Clinton. So, good job, Emmy voters. You've done it again. And again, this is just me speculating. I have no idea. Handmaid's Tale might be the best show ever made, but I'm not watching that bullshit. Fucking hell. Right? So season 4 of Better Call Saul lost to the final season of Game of Thrones, which, even though I just said now that I think season 6 is worse than season 8, it's the most universally reviled seasons of TV in history, right? People, it was the most popular show on TV for so many years, and then the way that people just turned against it because of that season, and you're telling me it won. But yeah, so that's the second time they should have won, and in both cases Game of Thrones won ahead of Better Call Saul. Then the 2020 ceremony is the toughest one for me. My top 3 shows, and they change in order depending if, when you ask me, are Mr. Robot, Better Call Saul, and Succession. And all of them released absolute banger seasons that year. Succession won the Emmy, but unfortunately for Better Call Saul, I'll give it to Mr. Robot Season 4, because Mr. Robot Season 4 is its best season, first of all. Second of all, that's how you end a fucking show. Hello Mad Men, hello Sopranos, hello Breaking Bad, hello Better Call Saul, right? Mr. Robot Season 4 is how you end a show. I think the only thing that might be better or on par is Succession, which is why it's, one of my top 3 shows. So, yeah. Season 6 of Better Call Saul was split into 2, a 6A and a 6B, and both of them lost their respective years to Succession, which, very tough, right? I think Better Call Saul should have won for 6A and lost the other for 6B, right? Because like I said, season 4 of Succession, the final season, incredible. Some of the best TV ever made, right? So at minimum, that's 3 outstanding drama Emmys that they were denied. Not to count like Rhea Seehorn as Kim Wexler, who was just robbed almost every year. Yeah, so like I said, there's 53 different Emmys that they never won a single one, which it's kind of shocking to me, because Breaking Bad was such a media darling, and then Better Call Saul, which I think is the far better show, not getting even a single amount of that same prestige, or the only thing that I think Breaking Bad has over Better Call Saul is that Bryan Cranston is a better actor than Bob Odenkirk. So, yeah. Anyway, Vince Gilligan said that the only spin-off that he's interested in making is a Kim Wexler show, and I would be so down for that, right? Just get Rhea Seehorn, set it in between. Oh, should I spoil Better Call Saul? But at the end, something happens to him, and she goes off on her own, and I would be so down to see that, and just the Breaking Bad universe just continued. So, yeah, that's the end of the Better Call Saul segment. Then I want to get into recommendations for the week. Alright. First thing is The End of the Curse, which is not what was placed on me by a witch when I was a child. It's the TV show by Nathan Fielder and Benny Safdie, and it ended in an incredibly surprising way, which has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I thought it was a great show. It just has some pacing issues, and yeah, that's really it. It's just the pacing. The acting is phenomenal. The themes, the set design, the the comedy, fantastic show. But yeah, I think this could have been done in like 6 episodes, but what is it, 10 episodes? So just a lot of filler, and like I said, that causes pacing issues. So I gave it an 8 out of 10, which this is a limited series, so I don't think it's coming back. Next thing I have is Fargo. Season 5 also ended this week, and also in a sort of surprising way. The penultimate episode promised us this big battle, but the ending was, small and more character based, which I actually liked far better than a big battle. The characters in the show is what it's about. The characters and their interactions, and yeah, it's. I don't think Fargo's ever been about like a big battle or something like that. Yeah. So I gave it a 10. This is the strongest season in quite a while. I didn't really like seasons 3 and 4. So yeah. I don't even like season 2 that much, I heard a lot of people have season 2 as like an all-timer season. But yeah, 1 and 5 are the two best in my eyes. Then I watched the finale of Reacher. So 3 shows that ended this week. Reacher is a Mary Sue, which, if you aren't sure what that is, it's somebody who has no weaknesses. It's like he'll be surrounded by 10 guys and he'll headshot 9 of them, and he'll be waiting with the gun with the 10th guy, and the 10th guy will be, you're like, please, please don't kill me, and he'll say a quip, and then bang, dead. And it's like, yeah, like I said, he has no weaknesses. His only weakness will be like, I just love too much, or like, I trust my friends and support them too much. It's like superficial weaknesses that are actually strengths in the long run. Very poor. Like, I like the fighting, but the storyline is so poor. It's so like just 90s reactionary style. Actually, not even the 90s. It's like an 80s movie put into a TV series. It's like Alan Richardson wants to be the new Sylvester Stallone. Just think of any rubbish Sylvester Stallone movie from the 80s or 90s, and that's what Reacher is a lot like. Yeah. Somewhere. And the thing is, the first season wasn't really like that. The first season was way better. So, yeah. Season 2, I'm somewhere between like a 5 and a 6. Really not good. Every week I was like, oh. And yeah, sorry. He has a team now. So not only is he the best, he has a team of people who are also the best. But he's the best of the best. So, in case you are wondering if he's not the best, don't worry about that. He's definitely the best. Right? Then I watched Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. Right? It's an animated DC movie telling an adaptation of their biggest ever story, which I don't know how much you know about the history of comics, but like when they were started, it would just be like, assume that it's all in one world. Then, like, characters got rebooted, like Jay Garrick the Flash was replaced by Barry Allen the Flash. Hal Jordan, no, sorry. Alan Scott Green Lantern was replaced by Hal Jordan, etc. So DC wanted a way to combine these universes. So they did something called The Flash of Two Worlds, where we find out that Jay Garrick, Alan Scott, all the like older superheroes who were in Justice Society is on Earth 1, and on Earth 2 is the characters that we've been following, like Barry Allen, etc. But then this gets out of hand, right? They keep introducing new universes, and everything just got too unwieldy. So to reel everything in, they did Crisis on Infinite Earths, which streamlined the DC continuity for a while until it got out of control again. And that's kind of the problem. DC and Marvel have been having in the past couple of years. They just keep rebooting because it gets too unwieldy and they can't get new readers in because there's just too much to read. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, I got way off track. The movie itself is just kind of fine. It's not really that interesting, and it's a lot of setup for something else. So I'm kind of waiting for part two, or I don't know how long this is gonna go for because I don't know if they can wrap this all up in one more movie. So there might be a part 2 and 3. But once everything's done, then I think I can get a better view of it. And yeah. The next thing we have here is season 4 of True Detective. And my friend, he told me that he believes True Detective season 1 is the best one season of TV ever made. And I find it hard to argue with him, right? That first season of True Detective is perfect in every way, right? You just had everyone just tuned up to 10. I was actually speaking about The Social Network maybe a few months ago now, but I said Fincher was directing at the height of his powers. Who's that dipshit who wrote The West Wing? Sorkin was at his best. Garfield and Jesse Eisenberg were giving all-timer performances. It's like, Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, they were on one when they were making that soundtrack. So everybody was just, fucking killing it, dude. So that's how I feel about True Detective season 1. Just an undeniable masterpiece. Seasons 2 and 3 are good. I like them a lot, but definitely not in the same stratosphere. Season 4, I think, has a lot of potential. So, I'm very interested to see how it turns out. It seems like there's a new writing team and just an entire new team behind True Detective season 4. So I'm quite interested to see how it turns out. Yeah. The next thing I watched is the Ted series. So there's a new series about the talking bear Ted, created by Seth MacFarlane, and it is far funnier than it has any right to be. Right? I thought the first Ted was hilarious, and then Ted 2 wasn't as good, so this is a huge step back up for the franchise. I gave it an 8 out of 10, but I would like to say that it's a lot like Family Guy. Like, when you get into a scene, they play like a intro music for that scene, like a da-da-da-da-da-da, and then like the scene will continue. It's exactly the same music as the Family Guy music, and the dynamics of the household are also very similar to Family Guy. So, not very creative if you're using a lot of plot. I mean, a lot of structure from your other show to put in here, but incredibly funny show, right? I had such a ball with it. And yeah, finally, I watched The Bear, right? Going from one bear to the other. I found out why it's called The Bear. I assumed I heard it was about a restaurant, so I assumed like a polar bear gained sentience and started cooking at that restaurant, but apparently not. His surname is Berzini or Berzano or something like that, where they call him the Bear because that's his surname, the first part of his surname. So yeah, what is it actually about? This guy's a former gourmet chef, and his brother commits suicide. I don't think that's a spoiler. Like, I think that's in the very first episode that, like, yes, and he's decided to take over his brother's older restaurant, and yeah, just, again, phenomenally acted. I haven't seen season 2 yet, which I've heard is even better than season 1, but the main three characters all won the Emmy for Best Performance in their respective categories. Jeremy Allen White won Best Actor, Ayo Edebiri won Best Actress, Ibon Moss-Bachrach won Best Supporting Actor. So, very excellently acted show, very well written, very well shot, but there's just something missing. I felt the same way, like as I mentioned in the Poor Things review earlier in this pod. There's just something missing that I can't put my finger on, where I'm like, I love this, but there's just something that's stopping me from giving it a 10, right? So currently I have The Bear as a 9 as well, but maybe season 2 will put it over the top and give me a 10. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Just gonna get to the ending now. So thank you for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, give a like, etc. Importantly, it needs to be a 5-star review. I just say that, but give us 1 star. We need the interaction. Give me 0 stars. I don't care. Just comment, like, subscribe, do all that. Also, please subscribe to our Patreon. That's actually the most important one. To listen to our movie commentaries. You can find all our links at PAICIP.com. That's PAICIP.com. Please tell a friend. Tell that friend to tell a friend. Tell a family member. And, yeah, goodbye.